But I've now coached hundreds of entrepreneurs. Pretty much all of them are doing the exact same thing. Find me a successful entrepreneur that's built a big business. There's a really high likelihood they're happier with their business than they are with their personal life. Why are we doing it, Keith?
Welcome to the Stay at Work Home. We are here to question the prevailing assumptions about the meaning of life, work, and the purpose of people. Instead of being torn apart by our vocations, we want to be pulled together. Come along with us as we change our picture of the good life and pursue the home as God intended, one that worships through work together. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am your solo host with a guest again, Keith, and my guest is that guy. His name is Eric, or is it that guy?
Yeah.
It depends.
Depends on which way you're looking.
Maybe it's that. Maybe it should be that way. I don't know. Whichever position you see another dude,
Yeah.
or perhaps it's going to move in and out. I'm starting to work with the editing stuff. It's Eric J. Roman. I don't know what to call him exactly. I would call him my friend. It's one of those friends that's like, I'm sure we could jump right in, like we did the other day in Home Depot when I called you.
A brother. How about we just call it a brother?
It's a brother you don't talk to that much, but it's because you've been so busy and like live 2,000 miles apart. But like his 16-year-old daughter is still 5 in my head, and my 16-year-old daughter is still 5 in his head.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Eric has gone through really stressful stuff that involved lawsuits with a business that he was growing with some people. And then he kind of had to bail on that and almost lose everything, or kind of lose everything. And I can't give you all the details, but it was scary. But then he like did it and it worked. And then he was like, that's enough, because I don't need to have my daughter reprimanding me for being a bad dad. Is that somewhere close to the story?
Gosh, that's on point. That's on point, Keith. Like, it's a good summary.
Podcast over.
Done. Hey, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Yeah. Yeah, life takes you to places you don't expect to go. And for that, we can be thankful.
Amen.
But along the way, I ended up doing a lot of things I never imagined I'd be doing. Building tiny home communities, getting into manufactured housing. Like, who would ever thought that? I'm not saying it was a good idea.
That.
Yeah.
News to me.
Yeah, right? So,
by the way,
so here we are.
This is a handmade mug with coffee I just roasted. It's Ethiopian light roast. And when you visit or I visit, we're going to have some like it, because it's killer.
There's nothing better than a hand roasted coffee bean. My one trip we took as a family, we went to Costa Rica. My kids got to have the experience from like plant to cup. Like, they actually picked the beans, and then we cleaned them, and then we roasted them, and then it was pretty epic. So like,
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's how you know. That's how you know that, like, the fact that your kids love that too. That's like, yeah, those are my kids.
That's the right kind of vacation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What'd you guys do on vacation? We roasted coffee beans from the vine.
Success.
From the coffee plant. Yeah. Pretty sweet. So what do you want to talk about, Keith? Where do you want to start this pony?
Dude, okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I mean, I could have you tell your story, but I already told it for you. So check that block. You have a business now. Would you call yourself a business coach or a life coach?
I would call myself an entrepreneur. I would say I'm a multidisciplinary entrepreneur. I am definitely a business coach, as one of the things I do in my life. No doubt. Yes, I'm a business coach, Keith.
Okay. So, and that makes sense, though. You're coming to it from being an entrepreneur, which is necessarily multidisciplinary, as I'm learning all the time.
Yeah.
And the system that you have, you've distilled it down to, we should kind of go like this. This is a thing that works to categorize the problems, the processes, the purpose. I'm getting all the P's in there, but I don't think the right ones. But to actually help you and to make your life not stink. And I don't want to accuse you of ripping off a particular financial concept. that my wife forced me to do and is now really working out for us. But let's just say that you essentially put the things that matter first, and those don't get sacrificed for other things. And you're seeking to have unity because it's called the one life
system.
One
life system. Yeah. You know what I discovered in the journey, Keith? My journey was that I was building a business, and for like people that are wondering, I was building a multi-location dental franchise was my first big business. And it was growing like crazy. And it was great. I ended up becoming a slave to it and building a business that was in control of my life. Why do we build businesses? We build businesses because of the expectation of something it provides for our life. Freedom, experiences, paying your bills. Like sometimes it's just like being able to survive. We only build, if you weren't going to get something out of it personally, would you still build the business? The answer is no. Even if it's a nonprofit and you don't like nonprofit, I mean, people make a lot of money off nonprofits, but even if it's a nonprofit, there's an intrinsic value of what you're doing. There's an intrinsic value. So we have something we want to feel and we want to derive as a result of building business. That's like source code. That's what we were designed to do.
Yep.
And yet, most of us don't get what we want. In other words, I ended up with a big business with a lot of money and a lot of value, and I wasn't present in my home. My marriage was falling apart. I wasn't there for all my kids' events. That wasn't what I signed up for. Mm-hmm. And I was thankful because I rectified it before I burned everything to the ground. But I've now coached hundreds of entrepreneurs. Pretty much all of them are doing the exact same thing. Pretty much all of them have built the more success. Find me a successful entrepreneur that's built a big business. There's a really high likelihood they're happier with their business than they are with their personal life. Why are we doing it, Keith? And so, and there's a lot of false beliefs that I've discovered. A lot of us believe that if we take the attention, that if we give our personal life the attention it needs, it'll hurt the business. The business won't continue to grow, And let's face it, sometimes businesses are a heck of a lot more validating than our personal lives are, right? Like sometimes right now, my oldest daughter is not super validating for me. Like it makes me, I look at her and I think, I've pretty much not done a good job as a father. Like I have days like that. Personal lives aren't valid. Sometimes our marriages aren't validating. Sometimes but at the end of the day, we say that's what matters most. We say those are the people we want to serve. We say that that's why we're doing what we're doing. And so, like full circle, Keith, like, and it's not just us, the entrepreneurs, it's also the people that work for us and with us. Most employees in this day and age aren't getting what they want out of their work experience. As a matter of fact, that's a big part of what we're seeing in the generational shift. We keep talking about, we're like, what's wrong with these young employees? They just don't show up for work one day. What's the problem with them? Well, the problem is they said that they wanted a life that they could enjoy. And when they discovered they couldn't have it by working in your business, they didn't show up anymore. They're putting their money where their mouth is. I kind of respect it when I think about it. So yeah. That's kind of the journey I've been on, Keith.
That's a very good point about the next generation problem. People often look at the hippies, the people that were going to college in the 60s and say they were the problem.
Yeah.
If they were the problem, then their kids would have shown the problem. But it was actually the people that raised them, right? And this is not to say that you did a bad job with Lila. And I would say that my 12-year-old son is incredibly unvalidating right now as well.
Yeah. That would be normal.
Flip back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm. Say that again. Which kid is it this week, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
oh my goodness.
And to your point about the generations, every generation says that about the subsequent generations, right? We actually say it both directions. We always say like, man, my parents were idiots.
They don't,
like their generation, like, why were they so dumb? What do we talk about right now? I'll tell you what I say. I'm like, our parents' generation, like they were slaves to their work. They never honored truth. They never dug down and did the hard work inside. They swept everything under the rug and covered it back up, and they're going to die with all their trauma and all their stuff. I'm not going to live like that. And then we look the other direction. We're like, what's wrong with our kids? They're messed up. They have zero work ethic. They don't want to work hard. They want everything handed to them. Like, so, and that was like, you know what? Go back as far as mankind. Like find your origin story. And I can tell you there's a father like talking trash about his son and his dad, right? Like we're all,
there's actually, I want to say it may have been Cicero or Seneca, somebody like that. I think it was on the History of Rome podcast, which was great, by the way. He read an excerpt, and it just read like you just see this 60-year-old guy like griping about the kids, like it could have been yesterday, you know.
But it was the first stoicism took control of trashing grandparents and children. Like I love it. Like the Stoics nailed it even back then.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, my progeny.
So why should somebody? Because this is the kicker, right? This is what you're going to always deal with when you're talking to people. Easy for you to say, Eric. You put business first for a decade plus. Mm-hmm. You killed it. You exited, and now you're getting the life. So, and you're expecting me to do it in a different way. Mm-hmm. What's the answer?
Yeah, I've had that push a lot. People say, Eric, like, but you worked hard, you built the business, you burnt it to the ground, but you built a big business, right? You're like, I get it. You can say that all you want, like, but I kind of want to do what you did. I'm kind of willing to sacrifice this stuff for the time being. And, you know, maybe it just comes down, Keith, to like who we are. Like, do you really, does your personal life really matter to you? You know, one of the other things though is like, who are our role models? Not the role models of the people that we see on TV, but who are the people that have built sustainably great lives? Who are the people that are actually content? See, because is Elon Musk content? Heck no. Steve Jobs was never content. He never rested. So do you want to be content? Or do you want to have something huge and just keep wanting more? It's like, what you focus on, what you feed, that's where your heart is, and that's what you're going to get. And so for me, yeah, I did one thing I wish I hadn't. I actually wish I was still in the first business. And I wish I'd built it sustainably, enjoyably, consistently. I would probably be far ahead of where I am right now. So Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel, I think is the name of the book. One of the things it talks about, what's his name? Omaha. Money guy.
Warren Buffett.
Talks about Warren. And you know what it talks about? It said, Warren never won big. Warren is 70 some years old, and he's just the story of compounding interest over time. Small win after small win after small win. Most of us think it's a long time for us to do that over 20 years. Warren is Warren because he did it over 50 years. Like, that's it. And they talk about, like, they give examples of these other people whose average returns were far greater than Warren's, that were like 5x Warren's returns, but that had down years, big down years, big downturns, and they didn't get the same results. Despite the fact they had 4 times Warren's return, they have a fraction of Warren's wealth because they didn't have the tincture of time and the amount of time that Warren used. And so, like, slow and steady can win a race. Who do you want to be? What's the story that you're really writing? Is your personal glory and the size of your business, is that something you're willing to sacrifice to say that are you willing to sacrifice your family for that big business story? It's an intriguing question.
So the start of it, maybe the sum and substance of it is we need to get to that point right now before we go any further that you're willing to sacrifice it. And before you're willing to sacrifice it, you're not ready to be content. You're not ready to be happy, nor are you ready to build it sustainably and thus build it as big as it could possibly be.
It's the truth of it. We have these false concepts. The false concept of man, if I can just grind and hustle, if I can just grind and hustle this out. Do you know what the story of grinding and hustling is? That you never break the cycle of grinding and hustling. That you grind yourself to the bone. It sounds good. It sounds really great. It actually makes logical sense. But once you turn it on, try turning it off. Try turning off that mentality. And because I tell you too, life wants us to give all of our energy to our business. We'll say the world, the sin and aggression of the world wants us to give our business all of our attention. And so it gives us dopamine hits of feedback. Ooh, did you see those numbers this month? Yeah. Just give it more time and I'll give you more numbers. Just give your business more. Where's that time going to come from? It comes from those cute little kids, and it comes from, that person you love so much that you said you wanted to spend more time with. But baby, don't you understand? If I just stick it out a few more hours tonight, if I skip bedtime and I skip dinner, it's a couple grand. I'm going to make a couple grand more. Who's your master then? Right? Who's your master and what life are you living? It's hard. I'm not going to act like it's easy. I still struggle with it, right? I still struggle with that. And maybe we always should, but I've made decisions. And I've also figured out how to achieve in both arenas, right? How do we show up as parents, partners, and people, and also kick butt in our businesses? That's actually a cool combination. Is that something that we can actually put on the table? Because most of us believe it's one or the other. Isn't that
And that's what we were talking about. Very quickly, when we talked on the phone the other day, I was sort of giving this. I was giving you the lowdown of our little project with the stay-at-work-home and this basic concept that you don't have to have work-life balance if you move them both to the center of the teeter-totter. You can just sit there in the center and you don't have to run back and forth. So from at a tactical level, what does that mean? Because I was listening to an interview you did with somebody else to get a little research so that I could tell your life story that I partially missed out on. And one of the things you said is, I'm building this business. I'm neglecting my family. I'm always at work. And I'm doing this. Why? For my family, of course. I'm putting them first by completely neglecting them. So what does it mean to really put your family first without neglecting your business?
What I discovered in my journey is that I didn't know how. That was really the thing. First, that false concept that giving my energy to my family meant taking it away from my business. But something I've learned, can you imagine what it would feel like? Most of us are operating at a deficit in the energy that we have with our family. We know we're not showing up for our partner, our spouse. We know we're not being the person we want to with our kids. We know I'm neglecting my body. I haven't been to a doctor in 17 years. Do you know what that does? That eats your capacity. So you think you're going into your business with I'm giving my business my best time. Yes, but you're not giving your business your best energy. And energy is more powerful than time. You think time is the greatest? I'll take energy over time all day long, right? Energy is the difference between a conventional grenade and an atomic bomb. It's not a difference in time. It's a difference in energy. That's the difference that we can have. And you know what else? Time's finite. Energy's not. right? And so think about how you would operate if you knew that the people in your life, if you knew that your needs were being met, if you knew that their needs were being met. And then here's the other flip side. My business, your business, I don't care who you are, your business is a monster that will always ask for more. When has your business ever said, all right, Keith, I'm full. I don't need anything else from you. Your business is always going to say, hey, Keith, a new market, a new opportunity, a new product line, a new merger, a new acquisition, a new growth, a new funnel, a new marketing strategy, it's endless. Your business can never be satisfied, but your personal life and your family actually can. And they don't need as much as you think. So if we can take that approach, then all that we need to know is like, how do we give attention to those areas? Because that's the thing nobody showed me. My dad didn't show me that. My grandfather didn't show me that. Heck, they were both, I'm not saying, like, my dad was a great dad. I give thanks. And he gave me tons of attention. But at the same time, like, he disappeared for days at a time, went to his thing. He didn't come back and create a lot of intention inside of our home. He didn't take care of himself as well as he could have taken care of himself. We need a system. So what happens when our businesses, when something's broken, Keith? We have consultants, we've got coaches, we've got books, we've got people that are like, hey, your business is in chaos mode. This is how you move it to clarity. Where has that been the entire time inside of our personal lives? There isn't any. Like, what we were saying is like, oh, well, when you really screw up, just go get a counselor. Counseling's high energy. It's high emotional energy. It's like, what can we do to maybe stay away from there? And that's what we built as a system. Like, and honestly, what I've found after doing this for years now with myself and with other people, that at the simplest level, if you just call timeout once every 90 days for half a day, like maybe that's it, call timeout and look at the appropriate areas of your personal life. How am I doing taking care of me? Like, how am I doing at living with purpose in my life? How am I doing financially? Like, what am I doing to give back my time? Like, looking at those key areas, how are my relationships right now? If you can give yourself just a fraction of a day out of every quarter and like have a plan for where we're going and check in on where we are, what's not working, what is, like, you can make extraordinary progress. When are you calling time out to work on you?
And it's when it's in business, you schedule it, right? You have a meeting, you brainstorm, you put it on the calendar, you set deadlines, you do all this stuff. I was just thinking as you're saying that, like a great experience that me and Becky had. I'm thinking it's just the other day when we called timeout.
Yep.
It was June. June's more than a quarter ago now. So we didn't get our 90-day fix on that.
That's what we do too.
So we need to.
We go through, everybody does, you know, and it's funny because really interesting thing too. I've had so many people come through our retreats. What we do is we set up retreats every 90 days. I'm running one at my house literally starting tonight. I got people coming over for dinner. And so for Thursday and Friday here, that's what we're doing. And what's really interesting is that I found that when the retreat was just personal, my show up rate was under 50%. In other words, hey, we're doing a personal retreat. Here's what it takes. Less than 50% of the people that signed up showed up. And those are people that are financially invested.
And they put money into it.
They put money into it. Now,
dang, that's rough.
Now what I'm doing, this retreat, it's a business retreat. We're going to mastermind on your business. Oh, and by the way, we'll spend just a little bit of time just checking in on you. And you know what that does to my show up rate? It's like 80% now, which for an event, from what I've discovered, 80% is really good on an event. You get 10
even when they're paying.
Oh, dude, like because
I'd imagine they're not paying $100.
The more that entrepreneurs have going on, the more things there are, the more fires, like literally, you know, the text messages I've had today, it's like, hey, business line just blew up, location went down, or like, hey, I'm still operating as a dentist. I got to go into the chair. Hey, and that's in addition to like sickness and all the other stuff. So isn't it crazy? Wild, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go figure. But, maybe those are my problems. But at the end of the day, we almost double the number of people that will show up for an event by making it a business event and not a personal event. Isn't that interesting, the way our minds work? We've been trained to ROI. Like, my personal life can wait. The other thing I'll say, Keith, personal lives are hard, man. Like, a lot of people will acknowledge. I've had people say, like, I'm a little intimidated, Eric. I'm scared to look under the hood. I don't know what's going to come up. I've gotten really good at sweeping everything in my personal life under the rug. You need gentle mechanisms, bro. Like, we don't need to. We aren't trying. This isn't therapy. We aren't reinventing you or anything like that. We're just doing a gentle check-in. Like, it's like an oil change, right? Just a quick little oil change. We're changing your oil. Sounds awkward. Sounds more like a blood transfusion.
Invasive. I don't know about this.
Does sound, yeah.
So, you bring up a very good point. As entrepreneurs, and I think especially entrepreneurs, but you also put this into like the marital and family aspect too. Mm-hmm. I don't have time for business coaching right now.
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, it's funny that this is happening today. I can't afford business coaching right now. I don't have time for business coaching right now. That kind of thing, that kind of mentality. Right.
Yep.
So you talked about, there's always another this, that, there's always another merger acquisition. So me and a friend are in the middle of an acquisition and
yeah.
And what's really funny is I was coaching him. It wasn't coach. It ended up being business coaching is what it was. But I was coaching him 3 months ago, and he was getting a lot out of it. It was really helping him. I had already decided, like in the last 2 hours, I'm going to be asking him to coach me tomorrow. Right? Like this needs to start because I've got this feeling like in my prefrontal cortex that you get when you are at stimulus overload. Mm-hmm. You're at information overload. You're at task overload. You're task saturated and you just can't see through the thick of it. I need somebody. You can't do that for yourself. Mm-hmm. Tiger Woods at the top of his game had a coach that was not as good of a golfer as he was.
It's crazy.
And then like everybody that looks at it, you get multiples off of any coaching you get, like from an ROI perspective.
It's truth. It's fact. It's simple. It's obvious. We can say it, but we don't do it. And what's interesting, Keith, is one of the things I've acknowledged is that like sometimes that's good partnership. Sometimes good partnerships are that we can show up for each other in that mechanism and in that way. If it's designed the right way, we can help each other, like get those things dialed in, like stay on the same page, do what we're supposed to be doing, have that level of accountability. We don't want to let our partners down when it's designed the right way. That's another way that we can solve for this variable sometimes in our life. Sounds like that's kind of the direction you're going. I've had that happen twice. I've turned 2 coaching relationships into partnerships. Nice. And that like there's something beautiful inside of that, it's like everybody's got a space, but I mean we look at every great athlete, every great story, and it's got a coach every day. It's got people acting like pros at what they do. I have a little coaching program I'm running for like entry level employed dentists right now. And one of the like core concepts is you have to approach there's a choice that you get to make. Choice 1 is you take what you learned in your education and you just show up every day and you go through the motions. Choice 2, something that's available to every one of you, but a small fraction of you are going to choose it, is to be the pro, is to be LeBron or Michael Jordan or the people we tell stories about. The difference is how you approach every single day, how you take care of your body, how you prep your mind, how you prepare for the day that's coming up, how you add new skills and capabilities, how you look at yourself in the, like, some of you are going to choose that, and your returns on your investment in your education are going to be 100x the other people's returns. You know, we all get that choice in running businesses. You know, like, everybody's in business, but some of us are pros at what we do. You know, it's like a choice to choose you.
Yeah, and there was something I saw. The average CEO works 35 hours a week. Fortune 500 CEO, like a high level, and that's really low, right? Like, you're not necessarily choosing a life of being just beaten down or just go,
Right.
but having the humility to bring somebody else in to critique you, to coach you, is huge, and that could be the difference right there. So in terms of the family, I mean, one of the things that we've been trying to do, obviously, is have work that the family can literally participate in, so that we're doing the same thing, so that we can have a life in which the fun things we do together is not just go to the movies or go on vacation to be entertained, but we're actually doing stuff together all the time. Because regardless of what you do, you're probably going to be working more than you are not working. Okay. I guess you could choose to work less, but most of us aren't going to do that. But if we can somehow put the two together, then we're there. There's not a lot of boardrooms, I would imagine, in corporate America that tolerate 2-year-olds.
Right.
So there's obstacles to that. As entrepreneurs, we have the opportunity to change that for ourselves and for whoever's working with us and for us. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe you can hit that. Like, how have you not just made time for family, but also kind of made family part of the mission? Because you clearly have a purpose at this point that you see as your personal purpose. And I would imagine that you maybe see a family purpose as well.
Yeah. You know, what I would acknowledge is that wealth isn't just money. It's not just money and assets. That's extrinsic wealth. But what you're talking about here, Keith, is intrinsic wealth. It's experiential. It's relational. It's changing the way that our kids see the future. It's changing the way they see their opportunities. See, when you grew up in a family where everybody worked a 9 to 5 and they worked for the man, what do you think your future is? Well, you work a 9 to 5, you work for the man. But when you work in a family where everything is possible, where you've learned what it looks like for businesses to be built, like, again, you just have more opportunities at your fingertips. You know, people talk about it all the time. Like, entrepreneurship built this country. Like, it is the cornerstone of what it means to be America. And the future, like, entrepreneurship is really about the ability to create freedom. It's not about how much you build. It's not about the wealth you build. It's about the freedom that you have to choose what you want your journey to be like. And that is a gift. That's a blessing. That's an opportunity, right? That we can enjoy. And so how do we do that inside of our families? Well, you're already doing it by giving your kids insight as to what's going on. Another way that I think about it, there is the experience people get through going through the motions, just being a part of it, being close. Hey, kids, watch me do this. Like, let's go do this together. Hey, my kids right now for the past day have been setting up my house for the retreat. Like, I've got kids decorating shelves. We got stuff going on. Like, we're getting the journals all set. Like, it's been, and they're like, so how does this work? I'm like, well, I get paid to do this. Like, we get paid to use our house. I'm like, yeah, actually, you'll get paid well. Like, and so we got to get the food. Like, but then there's the other piece of it, Keith, and it's the intention about what you guys want to create and what you want to transfer. And so the first question I would ask, like, when we sit here and we look at tactical things inside of a family, who are we as a family? What is it? When we look at it, a business, we call it the vision. Who are we and where are we going? When we look at it in a family, it's no different. Who are we and where are we going? And Keith, that comes down to you and your wife. That comes down to the two of you deciding, this is what's unique about my story. This is what's unique about your story. This is where they cross over to create our story, right? And when we ask some simple questions like, what do we want this to look like in the future? What do we want to teach our kids? What do we believe about education? What do we believe about our love? What do we believe about being a portion of this family? Like what are, like spiritual, all the things, the beliefs that come into it. That's the architecture of where we're going. And the catch is, first, most people don't even have that. As a matter of fact, it can be hard because you and your wife are like, well, we're not on the same page about this. Well, that's actually pretty cool. Like, how do you get on the same page, or how do you leave space for both of you to have different opinions, right? Like, that's cool too. If we don't create a vision for a future, we get what we get. It's really simple. So when you create that vision for the future, this is who we want to be. This is how we want to live. This is what we value. This is our stuff. Your next responsibility is to install that in the company. Whether you're in a business, you have to install your vision in the business. Or if you're in a family, you have to install your vision in the family. And the way that we do that is through a meeting cadence. We have to meet together and we have to go through those things over and over and over and over and over again until they become part of our essence and who we are. And so every week, every Sunday afternoon, we have a family meeting. It's the best part of our week. Like, we can't even operate a week without it. It's fun. We go through, like, what does it mean to be a Roman? What are our values, right? We celebrate each other. Who lived the values this week? I want to celebrate Mom. She showed family and fitness by signing us all up for the fun run. It was incredible, right? Like, literally just one from this week. And then we talk about hard things. We talk about the big picture stuff. We're installing the vision of who we are and where we're going, right? And then the next piece underneath that, meeting together as a group, is meeting together one-on-one. When we're in a company, we have to meet together one-on-one to make sure that our team members are still a fit, that we're supporting them on their journey, that they're supporting our company on ours, right? Like, and if we're not, we separate the relationship. Well, you don't separate the relationship with your kids, but you have to have a one-on-one meeting cadence, like, to see who they are, to see what's going on. So from a tactical perspective, Keith, like, do we have a vision? Like, do we have clear values? Who are we and where are we going as a group? How do we install that and meet together and solve problems and, like, continue the thing and celebrate what's working? And then at the base piece, how do we have a one-on-one connection cadence so we can see each other? And so that, like, my one-on-ones every 90 days, I do a one-on-one with each of my 5 kids. I do a one-on-one with my wife every 90 days. We take some time away. And that's when we really get, like, the conversations that come up. Every time I get done with it, my kids beg for them. And I'm like, I can't imagine going through my life not having had that one conversation that we had today. Never saw it going there, and that's where it was. So what I would say, Keith, that's how we use intention with it, right? That's the same thing we do in companies. If you're building a business, you have a vision, you have values, you have a way to get there. You got a weekly, quarterly meeting rhythm cadence, right? And then you do one-on-ones with your team members. Do it in your home. Do it in your home. Do it in your family to be intentional.
You use the word cadence a lot. Is that simply the rhythm that you do it, whether it's the weekly or monthly or 90-day?
Yes. Cadence, like, it's like a dance. Like, you just got to get into the rhythm and you got to keep doing it over and over and over again. As entrepreneurs, visionaries, like, we suck at repetition. It's one of our weak spots. It's like, Squirrel did it once.
Yeah. Another acquisition. Okay.
Yeah. I'm bored now. Like,
another opportunity.
I haven't really done this well once, but I'm really bored with it.
Yes.
Big healthy businesses are boring. Boring.
We are in the throes of just kind of beating our heads against the wall because we still don't have the Instagram login, from the company because they can't find it. Like, all that little nitnoid computer garbage that goes into actually making stuff happen. And it's frustrating. That's why, like, me and my partner need to do this sort of. There's not just a meeting. Like, there's got to be some serious tactical thought, about some direction about how you have that meeting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there
for
should
us,
be
I
a
think it's a
structure.
matter of looking at each other. A structure, yeah, that's the good word. A structure for how we're going to actually help each other.
Our quarterly meetings have the same agenda. They have the same set of things that we go through every time. When we're building visions, it's like, Read Traction by Gino Wickman. EOS has really cool structure for how they do all that stuff, how you build the vision, how you do the quarterly meetings, how you do the weekly meetings, right? And then you carry that through. That's your operating system as a company or as a family or as an individual. And, when we don't have an operating system, everybody just makes up their own crap. And when everybody makes up their own crap, that's where we have a company and we don't even know where the Instagram login is, right? And we're only one deep. We aren't systemized. There's when you aren't systemized, you don't have a company. You just have a job you're bound to.
The one of the questions that I had during the acquisition was, are there any company manuals I can see?
Yeah.
There were not. Operations manuals? No, none. And, my wife actually, because I've kept myself nice and busy, and my wife has said, hey, you need to get this structure, get this education. And so she was reading EOS.
Mm-hmm.
She was reading various other things. And so I've already got a set of manuals for Heartland Bunkies. And so it's needs to be updated at this point, probably. But it's something, so realizing that I'm ahead of the game on that because of what she told me I had to do is pretty cool. Something you said, you talked about wealth and class. You didn't talk about class, you talked about wealth and extrinsic wealth and intrinsic wealth.
Yeah.
And, it probably goes back to something that, some guru like Gandhi said, wealth is not having or getting what you want, it's wanting what you have, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we were talking, what was I guess it was when because I do a lot of podcast guesting for marketing purposes. And one of the things was, how do you fight, sort of crass consumerism in your family to get your family to not be plugged into everything but each other. And, it's just the hard no's, and it's the hard things that you're going to do, enforcing that doing it. And if you look at it from a class perspective, unfortunately, what you see is if you are considered lower class, and you could put that on financial terms,
Yep.
but I don't think you have to put it on financial terms. I think you can put it on intrinsic wealth terms. You could have not a dollar to your name and, live in a camper down by the river on land you don't own, and you could be upper class.
Yeah.
Theoretically, at any rate. And there's probably somebody doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see is people that are unfortunately also middle class and upper class, but they're engaging in behaviors that are imitating the lower class and that are going to drag them down to become lower class. Because when you see lower class parents parenting their kids, unfortunately, what you see is you see them giving them the smartphone really quick. Here, 1.5-year-old, shut up and watch the smartphone so that I can do something else and ignore you. And your Silicon Valley execs are not letting their kids touch anything that they make.
Yeah.
But they are signing their husbands up for 5Ks. So you better get out there and practice, they're doing hard things. They're choosing a different kind of life. And so that wealth, the wealth of being able to say yes to really, really good things and no to mediocre to not so good things, that's huge.
And it's, in a weird sense, it's like we've reintroduced a new type of slavery into our society, right? And we've become slaves again to our digital world, like to our devices, to the dopamine that it provides. I'm not negative Nancy on the long term on it. I actually think that the same things that have taken us in are going to produce a new future for us that might be very different. But right now it looks pretty bleak. I think
transition.
a lot of people listening probably have read. If you haven't read The Anxious Generation, pick it up. It's been so hot this year. Anxious Generation's incredible. Not only do they talk about, first, there's no precedent for what we're experiencing. So as we're getting with our kids, this generation of kids, my 17-year-old's like the first generation to have been raised in this environment, like with these things at her disposal. Like she's the first one in the iPhone generation. Like, so the data's just showing up, and we clearly don't like the data, but it's not like we're like, we should have known better. You know what? Like, that's not the way the world works.
Never happened
a bunch of stuff like that. It's like history. Like, we got a bunch of stuff like that all through history. We should have known better, right? But we did it anyway.
Unfortunately, this episode was cut short due to a terribly timed power outage. But be on the lookout for part 2, which I've already scheduled to record, in which I'm going to press Eric for lots of details on how he thinks technology might ultimately help us pull ourselves out of the pit that it helped shove us into. This episode of the Stay at Work Home is brought to you by HeartlandBunkies.com. Come check out our full line of small cabin kits that can be easily assembled by a few friends or family in just a weekend for extra space for meaningful connection, or extra income, or a home office, a homeschool room, or whatever.